find a way to figure this out. They say if you can write clearly, you can think clearly. So how many of you watched Virumandi? If you want to go far, go together. Finding a better way to do it. If someone is bored, it's infectious. Train them, help them. 4 pieces, it's not enough. Okay.
Today we thought of service businesses generally with a very problem in they are very good ICs, and that's why they go ahead and become an entrepreneur also. And that's Raghavan. He's been in IT for the last 15 years.
13.
Yeah, 13, 14 years. So we thought we'll also my brother. So I've seen him taking calls. So I thought let him speak on planning and delegation. Over to you, Raghavan.
Morning all. So it's been a while since I did any presentation whatsoever. So making sure that let's not digress too much from whatever we're talking about. And being a huge Valarvom fan, you'll find a lot of pop culture references. Anybody who doesn't understand Tamil here? Okay, so at least an understanding, right? Okay. If someone else can do it, if your team can do it, you shouldn't. Keep that in mind. I think that's pretty much the summary of the whole talk. You can walk out right away, but this is it. So, Tata already said it several centuries ago. This man, this work shall work out something thus. Let someone decide this and then leave the matter wholly into that person. So, find out the right person who can get something done with the right tools and just leave it with them. So that's all the summary. So that's I think this is the core of delegation here. He went one step further. Vinay kurime naadiya pindrai avanai adar kuriya nagat. As soon as you figure out someone's special aptitude or talent, make it his work, not yours. Meaning ownership. So this imbibes a certain level of trust. Don't micromanage. I think you can do a lot of reading into these 2 lines, just 7 words, right? So it's up to your interpretation. A lot of people have interpreted it, but our core is to make sure they can do it and they can do it well, and they should own it. So how do you know whether or not someone can do it? That comes from your experience. How do you know when someone can do it? Someone can do it right. That comes pretty much only when you can do it right yourself. As Kamal Hassan said in an interview, a manager is not someone who just gets work done. He's someone who can step in when someone else, that subordinate, cannot work. Why do we have to delegate? There's only so much you can do. We all have finite amount of energy, time, resources. If you try to do everything, you will fail miserably. So we only have 1 brain and 2 hands, maybe half a brain, some of us, but that's fine. 1 brain and 2 hands, and finite time, resources, and money. Like if you decide to race against time, it's a losing battle. Don't let boredom creep in. If someone does the same thing over and over every single day, it's human nature to get bored, unless there are a few exceptions, which I have seen, by the way. There are all kinds of people in corporate environment. So there are people who are perfectly okay to do the same kind of check, same sequence of steps, same workflow every single day and not complain. You can use such people for such things, but a general mentality is you can't have idli for breakfast every single day. We all love idli, but you can't have it every single day. So there needs to be a variety, there needs to be a change, something new, something interesting, something to look forward to every single day. So do not let boredom creep in for yourself and for others. Let others step up. Only when someone does something themselves, they will step up. Meaning, say they have been doing a task A every single time. Unless you let them try doing B, they'll never be able to do B. The first prerequisite for doing something good is first doing it. So just trying to do it. So throw them into water, of course with the lifeboat, but save them when they have to, but they have to be able to swim. And eliminate dependency, create adequate redundancy. So if someone is absent, someone is off sick or on vacation, the work shouldn't get stopped. It's actually a huge showstopper when there is a critical emergency where you cannot ask someone to come into work. Maybe they are sick, maybe they have a family emergency, whatever. When you can't ask someone to step in, your work is going to get stalled. As a manager or as a leader, that's pretty much your fault as well, because you haven't found someone else who can do it. So you need to have adequate redundancy and hands-on learning of the nitty-gritty. So let's say you complete a course on a certain programming language. You know all the syntax, but how will you know what kind of errors could throw up if you do a certain thing? Let's say divide by 0, right? What kind of error would you get? Unless you get to do something, you won't learn the nitty-gritties at all. That's just how it works. You can be an AI like Gemini or ChatGPT, but we can never get there. The way we learn is, in fact, even that has got there only by learning. by reinforcement. Only when you get something hands-on, when you get your hands dirty, you can learn the nitty-gritties. That just no second choice. You got to do what you got to do. Whoever is going to do it, it has to be done. So what can be delegated? So let's say you want someone to scale up and they need to learn something. The best way to make them learn something is give them a task that involves that specific skill. Instead of simply saying go finish a course on Scala or R or Ruby or whatever, give them some basic stuff that they can use the language, learn while on the job, and then get deliver a really, even if it's a small, tangible product, it is tangible. So anything that involves upskilling can and should be delegated because it's in the larger interest. Features that would help as a step up to bigger tasks. So let's say there's a huge project and you might have a holistic view as a leader, but you cannot expect the subordinate to have the same view, right? So let's say there's a huge project coming up with so many different teams and modules and technology. Only when you throw them into that environment, they can step up to the bigger tasks involving other departments. Let's say you are into networking, as in system networking. So maybe cybersecurity would be a related field, or vice versa. I'm just giving an example. And automation or optimization ideas. So let's say you have an idea for automation of a daily job. If you can do it, fine, but you let the other person do it by inspiring them to automate, number one. And also, only when they automate it themselves, they will know what are all the parameters to be considered. So you give them the ideas, not the complete work broken down into separate feature stories. So you say, okay, so there is an email that the client wants every single day, right? Find a way to figure this out. If you let them think of it, they will actually come up with probably a better idea, or worse, you can dish it out, and then they will actually, it'll force them to think of all the other parameters as well. Instead of simply, okay, so write a shell script, go through all these files, zip it, create a cron job. Don't give them instructions. Just give them the ideas. Let them work through it. And of course, before implementing or while implementing it, optimize it. Minutes of the meetings, emails, repeatable tasks that cannot be automated. So delegation is not a form of patronizing behavior, like, okay, so it's not like I'm too good to do this, so you should be doing it. So it's not that. Some oldies might argue that, okay, so I went up the ladder doing all this, now it's your turn. It's actually good on paper, as in it's factually correct, but morally incorrect, as in it's sort of demoralizing. So now that I've come here, I have to do all the menial jobs while you sit at the top and simply pull your strings. That's not how it works. Let's say you bring a subordinate into the meeting and you get them to do the minutes of the meeting. They will actually have to take in notes and they should be able to summarize whatever went on. So if you go on a call for the first time or in the initial days of your career, I'm pretty sure you'll have no clue what everybody's talking about. It's very normal because you cannot be expected to know something that someone who has done this for 10 years is speaking, right? It's just natural. But when you articulate whatever people have discussed, that brings in your communication skills, your understanding. So they say if you can write clearly, you can think clearly. In a conversation, you can go front and back, you can suddenly go on a tangent and come back, but writing, it's a bit harder. It has been done in writing, but it's very hard to bring the same feel to bring in a conversation. So, okay, so how many of you watched Virumandi? Don't answer that. But I can come back to the same thing right away. But imagine reading how many of you watched Virumandi in the middle of an email and then suddenly switching. It just doesn't work, right? So you cannot switch like this in writing, which is why your writing has to be well thought out, which is why corporate emails are actually a good way to learn proper communication as well. Because what's going on in the city, what's with the political issue that's in the news? You should be able to summarize it in 5 minutes, or simply say I don't know, or simply say this is all I know. But if you go front and back, you would confuse the other person who asked the question. They would actually regret asking you in the first place. Someone else or some AI or whatever. Minutes of the meetings or emails or such things are actually not a bad way to get someone started on some task. And it's actually essential for them to do this, because not only does the work have to be done, it's imperative that they do it themselves in order to be able to articulate their understanding and of course get corrected, and then the comms should get sent out. And essentials for stepping up. Let's say management or billing or rota assignment, who comes on what days, who sits where, which team are co-located. So these are all essential skills for project managers. So if the manager does this, sure, well and good, but what if someone who is a prospective manager, they should also be knowing all that. So stepping up is not just for tech skills or functional skills or communication skills, but also all operational skills as well. So, and also in terms of optics, if you say it's your job, do it, that doesn't come off well. So you let the subordinate slowly handle things and get them to not say certain things certain way. They have to pretty much, behave like you or better than you in the near future. And then exploration to pique curiosity. Okay, so we have a daily set of processes that we have to wait for 45 minutes every day, and that's hindering our work. What can we do about this? You might have an idea, but in my opinion, I would suggest don't say it out loud in the first place. Tell them the problem statement. Tell them, discuss the parameters that are involved in the problem and what you would like to see as a result. So tell them the destination but not the path. Let them figure it out. So if you have someone curious in your team, you're lucky, because they will constantly do other things that they shouldn't be doing, but it's also a blessing, right? Because they will see things differently. They'll just constantly think about what else can they do or how different they can do something, and challenging or intriguing, interesting tasks. Okay, sometimes you as a leader just cannot do it. I mean, you getting your hands dirty on a lower level, so, and that is really challenging for you, right? And if it's their job and it's good for the team and it's good for the organization, it's good for the overall product or service, why shouldn't you? You absolutely should. So what if you don't? There's a proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. Let's say you can run the fastest in the room. What if you all have to reach a certain, let's say from here to Katipara, let's say I can reach in like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Can all of you? No, right? So chain is only as strong as its weakest link. The chain has to be strong overall. Like let's say a really, a metal, like the anchor, but if it has a really small joint broken, the entire chain is of no use. So if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And going together needs a lot of patience, team building, trust, a lot of other factors that you might know already. So slow progress. If you don't delegate, because everybody can do only a certain thing in a certain way, in a certain amount of time, with certain amount of resources, it will not improve at all. So as and when someone learns something, they should be able to move on to the next one. Not ignoring their job, but finding a better way to do it. So initially I learned it takes me 10 hours to do something, right? Eventually I am able to do it at 8 hours. But the 8 hours cannot be forever. They'll come down to 5 and then they should use the rest of 2 or 3 hours to do something else. This is not about being greedy. It's just that's how you keep everything interesting. And it's a waste of talent. Let's say you have a really smart fresher in your team and you have been in the company for like say 4 or 5 years. Someone is eager and knowledgeable and it's all energetic, and you give them something to do. But if you don't feed them enough, you're wasting their talent as well. You're not only wasting your time, but you're also wasting someone else's talent. So it's unfair to them. Also inhibits upskilling. So if you don't let someone do something, you're depriving them of the opportunity to learn something new, right? And then lack of innovation. There's a stagnancy that sets in over a period of time, which is human nature. We all go towards stability. But only when you get someone to do something else, different from what they've been usually doing, you get to see new ideas. So you put someone who is so bored into doing some paperwork. They'll do it because it's a job, but they'll certainly do it differently, if not better. That sparks ideas for doing things more efficiently. It's very important to not get anything stagnant, including your life. Sorry for the life lesson. So, and then attrition. Again, if you're bored, there is nothing to look forward to. Okay, so maybe you're in for the money or the contacts or out of any other obligations, but if it's demotivating, lower team morale. If you have to do something every single day in and day out, I go do my work, do the emails, do the same meetings, do the same programming, and then finally fill the timesheets. Don't even get me started on timesheets. But yeah, it's a necessary evil. Don't take me on this. People will just get bored. And if someone is bored, it's infectious. If someone is, let's say you're in a room full of 5 people. You're in for a meeting. And even if you're not all cheerful, chirpy, and bubbly, if you look depressed sitting in a corner, nearly crying, would someone want to work? Would someone want to even approach you? The entire morale goes down, and that's bad for every single person involved. Not just for the work, but in the broader picture, it's worse for everyone. That's the translation. That's just English. So, plan what needs to be done, and who can do what, and how long will they do it. So again, it goes back to the first kural. Idanai idanal ivan mudippan endra indu adanai avankan vidal. So endra indu. So that's the planning bit. Figure out what needs to be done. What's the problem? What needs to be done? How it can be done? Who has the right tools? Who has the knowledge? Who has the experience? Let them do it. If they can't do it right away, give them some time, train them, help them, and then once they're at a certain level, let them own it. Under promise and over deliver. Let's say as a developer, it's very tempting to say, oh, this will just take me two dev days. But only devs will know. Devs will know that they will want to do it in 2 days, almost never, and it'll take 5 days. So if you say 7 days and then you deliver it in 4, it is still a good deal, right? So if you say 2 and then even if you deliver in 3, that's still bad. This involves delegation as well, because if you're thinking as an individual developer, you know your limits, you know the tools you have, you know the experience you have, you know that you cannot do certain things. But if you are a team of say 4 or 5 people, you come up with who can do what, and then let's say on the overall, let's say it takes you arrive at a number of say 5 days. I would say still promise 7 days or 8 days, and then deliver it in 4 or 5 or even 6. That's fine. But never overpromise. Overpromise and underdeliver is such a bad optics to have. Always underpromise and overdeliver. And process is to aid work and not become the work itself. You might feel that this is all going a bit tangential, but it's very much imperative to minimal amount of processes. If you have to do some sort of paperwork, like timesheet, every single day, that takes supersedes the work itself. Anyone who is actually curious about getting the job done will get annoyed unless they're not serious. Okay, so if someone can act like a machine, they can just do anything you say every single day. That's fine. Use them for such tasks. But if you give them something with a deadline of today, and then say, bring me this document first, I want to review it, I want to review the design, and then you have to implement it by the end of the day, and then also finish time sheets, and then also do the cursory meeting, and then represent this, do the extracurricular activities, all this. Just because some chart somewhere shows that this person in this team was involved. It's absolutely a waste of time to do bureaucratic work. At some level, in fact, they say there are no banks left. Everybody is a fintech now. I think a lot of people would agree. So everybody, at some level, it's an IT company, right? So even someone using Zoho Books, for example, run their stuff, they might not be knowing that they are heavily reliant on IT. So for them, they might not know that cybersecurity is important. But at some level, they are also very much an IT company, right? Because how do you define what's an IT company? If someone uses IT, or one step ahead, if someone relies on IT, if someone can't function without IT. So all this, I think, sort of fits everywhere. So it's important to have minimal set of processes, reduce the bureaucracy, reduce the red tape, as they call in the government language. So the more red tape you have, the more it hinders innovation, work, and your very sustenance. Because if you're doing paperwork all the time, when do you get to do the actual work? Process is to only aid work and not become the work itself. And he will come slowly only. People will definitely take time. So you need to work with the strengths and weaknesses of everyone, and that's how you build a team. As we said earlier, if you want to go far, go together. Say 4 pieces is not enough. Okay. Meaning, if you don't have something, if you don't have additional talent, make do with what you have. And when you get it, take it. Just because you can get something done in a frugal way, don't settle for the frugality. Expand. And you will know all this only when you disperse and distribute the work. Okay, this definitely won't come right away, because all these are, learnings. So I was once asking a friend, why is corporate financials and auditing and all the financial paperwork so hard? I mean, these things have been around for centuries. He said, people have been swimming for millennia, hundreds of millions of years. But if you want to swim, you still have to drown first. That's how it works. So it takes time to learn something new, to rewire our brains. It's totally normal. And only when you work with all these constraints on ground, on the job, you will get to know what works, what wouldn't, what shouldn't, what cannot, and all that. Thank you.